Vous êtes parti à quelle heure de Paris?
14h.
Suite.
Ah ouais, c'était archi bouché. Hein.
Tout le monde derrière sort la même excuse, mais le gendarme finit par regarder.
Là, ça commence à faire beaucoup et on va commencer à la verbalisation.
135 €. Un couple dans une grosse berline 75 n'en revient toujours pas.
Quel motif doit-on mettre?
Bah, si vous êtes.
Dans les bouchons?
Non,
Ouais,
si vous
pas le taxi prévu sur
Il
le
n'y a
truc.
pas.
Hein.
Bah, j'ai quitté mon à 3 heures de Paris.
3 heures, ouais.
L'homme est tout rouge et il se dit qu'il aurait dû faire une attestation bidon.
Pour dire que je vais voir ma grand-mère mourante, vous m'auriez laissé passer parce que vous n'auriez pas vérifié.
Voiture suivante, un groupe de copains beaucoup plus détendu.
Ouais, on a l'attestation, tout, hein, on va voir la grand-mère.
Franchement, le truc de la grand-mère, c'est vrai ou...
Bah non, mais à votre avis, à 17 degrés, on part en vacances. Hein.
Ils présentent leur attestation au gendarme.
La grand-mère qui est là.
Tu es à Trouville.
Vous êtes à Trouville?
Ouais.
Ok.
Merci, bonne soirée, monsieur.
Directement sur Trouville, là.
Ouais.
Bonne soirée, au revoir.
De même.
Le van repart dans la nuit. On les a bien eus. Direction le phare rouge de Trouville pour une semaine à la plage.
Un reportage signé Marc Bertrand de France Bleu Normandie sur France Info. Évidemment que je me réjouis de cette libération de la parole, évidemment que je me réjouis que la honte change de camp et que les femmes aient le courage en toute solidarité d'exprimer le désespoir qu'elles ont. La Terre d'État chargée de l'égalité entre les femmes et les hommes le dit dans le 8h30 France Info. Elisabeth Moreno, interrogée ce matin sur les accusations.
It's like a tap and connect to the person. That makes sense.
Territoire français, sa demande de statut de réfugié avait été refusée. Selon Gérald Darmanin, le ministre de l'Intérieur qui s'est rendu sur place hier à Pau, il avait été convoqué par 2 fois à la préfecture pour en être informé, mais il n'y était jamais allé. Au lieu
The Holocaust lives in everything you eat. Delivering the most delicious.
Interpellé sans résistance et placé en garde à vue pour assassinat. En France depuis 6 ans, il avait été suivi.
Campaigner and former world champion chess master. First, his thoughts on this current case involving the World War II veteran.
I wouldn't concentrate on this specific case because the message from Putin's dictatorship to Alexei Navalny and all other protesters is very clear. You raise your voice, you make the streets, you protest, and you end up in jail.
Protestataires ont déposé ce matin une couronne mortuaire dans le centre-ville de Rangoon. Dans la nuit, le pouvoir avait une nouvelle fois coupé Internet et procédé à des arrestations. Des arrestations aussi de moindre ampleur et dans un régime plus démocratique. En Géorgie, 25 personnes gardées à vue depuis hier. Nouvel épisode de la crise que traverse le pays. Jeudi, le Premier ministre avait démissionné en soutien au chef de l'opposition, visé par une procédure judiciaire qu'il qualifie de politique. Cette démission laisse la place à l'aile dure du parti au pouvoir, selon certains manifestants. Ils dénoncent des fraudes aux dernières élections et craignent une dérive autoritaire dans ce petit pays d'Europe de l'Est qui fait figure habituellement d'exception dans l'ancien espace soviétique. Régis Chanté.
Ces manifestants voulaient installer des tentes devant le siège du Parlement, sur l'avenue Roustaveli, l'élégante artère du centre de Tbilissi. C'est là que se déroulent depuis 3 décennies tous les mouvements politiques, manifestations et autres révolutions qui secouent la petite république du Caucase du Sud. Ces manifestants voulaient protester contre la décision du gouvernement de lever l'immunité de Nika Melia, le chef du mouvement national uni, le principal parti d'opposition. La police ne l'a pas entendu de cette oreille et a entrepris de démonter les tentes et a arrêté 25 militants dans la journée. Le parti au pouvoir, contrôlé par l'oligarque Bidzina Ivanishvili, est accusé par le défenseur des droits de l'homme d'avoir violé la loi très permissive en Géorgie en matière de droit de rassemblement. Lassé de l'occupation du parvis du Parlement par divers mouvements de protestation ces dernières années, le pouvoir a prétexté récemment des travaux d'aménagement urbain, notamment d'imposants bacs de verdure de style moderne, afin de comprimer cet espace sans doute le plus politique de la jeune démocratie géorgienne. Régis Janté, Tbilissi, RFI.
Les sports avec la finale des internationaux de tennis d'Australie à Melbourne. Les premiers échanges débutent dans une vingtaine de minutes. C'est la finale femme et c'est la japonaise Naomi Osaka qui affronte l'américaine Jennifer Brady. En football, 26e journée de Ligue 1 française. Lyon est allié.
His neighbors, interferes with free world elections, assassinates at home and abroad with chemical weapons. And Europe still talks about wanting dialogue with Putin. They already had dialogue. Europe said, release Navalny, Putin said, go to hell. Dialogue is over. It's now time for action. The targeted sanctions on Putin's henchmen and oligarchs and their families, and kicking Russia out of these institutions, international institutions. It abuses and corrupts. But unfortunately, I would expect some kind of, diluted version of these sanctions that will not go into the core of Putin's power, because it's a one-man fascist dictatorship, criminal mafia that only cares about money and the power needed to get money and keep it.
What of the new man in the White House? Do you have hopes that something will change now because of President Joe Biden being in post?
We had strong rhetoric from the White House. Again, strong words, but I'm waiting to see actions. And naturally, Biden had to deal with so many foreign challenges, and I'm not sure that Russia will be a top priority. But he had plenty of experience dealing not only with Putin's dictatorship, but also with Soviet Union when Biden was younger. I trust his instincts, I expect that America will review its leadership of the free world, and hopefully it will have positive influence on Europe, especially on countries like Germany and Italy that are still trying to continue business as usual with Putin.
Garry Kasparov, long-time democracy campaigner, former world champion chess master, of course. Alan Posner, he has little faith in the strength of EU sanctions if and when they come, or indeed the coordination of them. Are you equally doubtful?
Yes, I have to say, I was nodding all the time. I think every word he said is true. I mean, it's amazing. Navalny is in jail and his would-be murderers are running free. That says all you need to know about Putin. Meanwhile, Germany is constructing a new gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, to make us even more dependent on Russian energy. Now, how can Europe pretend to even want to develop a policy which confronts Mr. Putin if at the same time we're begging him to give us more of his gas? It is really, I'm ashamed, quite frankly, about the whole performance. I mean, the other day, Mr. Borrell, who is the foreign policy chief of the European Union, he was in Moscow, and while he was there for talks, they chucked European diplomats out of Moscow. And instead of saying, well, I'm going, that's it, thank you, friends, he stayed on to let himself be humiliated by the Russian foreign minister. And I can't say how much I agree with Kasparov and how terrible I feel that Germany especially has decided basically to continue independency of Mr. Putin.
Just on Nord Stream 2, I anticipated you might bring it up.
It's obvious.
It is nearly finished. So what realistically could Germany do about that now?
Well, I don't know, there's about 50 kilometers that's still to be laid, and Germany could say we'll put it on hold, right? As they said in Afghanistan, make it the completion of the pipeline conditional on certain things happening in Russia. That's perfectly possible. I mean, I have nothing against the pipeline working sometime, but not now. So actually, the fact that it's almost finished would give us, if we only had the guts to face up to Mr. Putin, a very good sort of deal, a very good card hand in the game of poker we're playing.
Filia, let me get a thought from you on Mr. Navalny's decision to go back to Russia, because you heard Garry Kasparov's take on it. He was admiring of it, and clearly, there must have been huge doubts among his supporters as to whether that was the right thing to do. What do you think?
I agree. I think it was a huge kind of it was obviously a decision on his part to make a statement, but obviously he knew what was at stake, and I very much admire him for going back and taking that responsibility to highlight the regime that Putin has put in place, as Alan has described. So I am also like Kasparov, very, very very kind of admirative of him being the man of the moment, if you want, to sort of take on that fight and to highlight the problem. And I like Alan, a very kind of negative, if you want, have a negative reaction of the EU and its idea of putting in sanctions and not sort of taking on Putin and denouncing and really being strong and sort of letting Putin get away with it. So yes, I very much admire this act of self-sacrifice, if you want, to try and help the country or introduce more democratic reforms in his country, and he's paying a high price for it. So it's very, very brave on his part. And the EU, you know, is kind of all over the place, unfortunately, in kind of, you know, being strong against big sort of regimes who kind of treat it badly and don't listen and do what they want in a way. So yeah, it's a very difficult situation.
Just to let you know that Mr. Navalny is standing up in court as I speak, and is making his final appeal before this verdict in this case against him over the allegation that he called this World War II veteran a traitor. He's been continuing to sound defiant, talk about what was decided in Europe to a degree, who he regards as having any validation in terms of making a decision today. Obviously, as soon as we get a little bit more out of the court. In fact, I'm just reading something now. He's closing arguments in his appeal, and this is what he said, and I quote, "Europe's Human Rights Court said the initial trial verdict was fabricated, and then they made a ruling to free me, but I am tried, and I am tried, and I'm tried, and tried." In other words, every time he feels he's been through a court process, he has to go through another one. And he concludes, it seems very strange. We'll obviously bring you more from that Moscow court as and when. The new US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has talked exclusively to the BBC about the Biden administration's approach to the world. He was speaking to Yalda Hakim, who asked him what President Biden meant when he told international leaders that America was back.
Well, I think you heard the president say it. America's back. He last spoke at the Munich Security Conference 2 years ago in 2019, and he said America would be back, and now he's president, and America is back. But what does that mean? It means that we're determined once again to engage in the world, to show up again, because in the absence of American engagement, in the absence of American leadership, then one of two things happens. Either some other country tries to take our place and probably does so in a way that doesn't advance the common interests and values of the democratic world, or no one does. But it's also imperative that American engagement and American leadership be for the purpose of finding new ways to cooperate among countries, because every single one of the major challenges we face, whether it's climate change, whether it's this pandemic, whether it's the spread of a dangerous weapon, not a single nation acting alone can deal with them effectively. We have to find ways to work together.
You've been speaking to European foreign ministers on rejoining the Iran nuclear.
Oh, for fuck's sake, rehash this story 1,000 times.
It just becomes basically a museum piece. You can't shoot it. You can't show it off. So the last time you go to a museum and there's some Sturmgewehr that someone brought back from the battlefields of Europe, that's a prohibited firearm. So it can technically still shoot, but you're never allowed to shoot it.
Right. You wrote a fascinating piece about this for the National Post and how this is going to work. And so for people who maybe have some of these banned weapons now, like how much will the government pay for these guns? Do we know?
That hasn't been revealed. They say the average cost is going to be about $1,300. So I speculated because, these are really expensive guns. All of the guns on this list, what they did is they called it assault-style firearms. So there actually wasn't, there was no technical classification. It's not like they banned semi-automatic firearms or handguns, both of which could have made sense. They just banned every gun that kind of looks scary. That sounds like I'm a gun nut, but that's actually true. Because if you look at the list, there's a whole bunch of guns that are still perfectly legal and non-restricted with equal capability to some of the guns they banned. So they would ban a gun that is just as deadly as one that is still perfectly legal, but it looked scary and it was black and it looked like a prop from a Schwarzenegger movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the things that's really frustrating to gun rights advocates or anyone with some basic knowledge of this stuff. I think when a lot of people hear this term assault weapon, in their minds, they're thinking of like a machine gun or something like that, which is already prohibited and banned in Canada. Like we're talking about semi-automatic rifles, like basically requires a separate pull of the trigger for each bullet fired. You can't like press the trigger down.
You can't even get a machine gun in, you can't even get a machine gun in the U.S.
Right.
Semi-automatic means it loads automatically. So if I want to get a semi-automatic firearm, so I want to get a gun with 10 bullets in it. I forget the exact capacity, but one where I just go bam, 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 and I don't even have to cock it in between. I can still do that. It's just going to have a wood stock rather than a black stock.
Right, yeah, a lot of it has to do with like a pistol grip, or like you say, they're almost always like flat black in color. They're just scary looking guns, but they really don't function any differently than another, like a hunting rifle. But let me ask you this, like you speculate in your column in the National Post, could people actually make a profit on this buyback program? Like if you have a bunch of these now banned firearms, could you actually make big bucks by selling these guns to the government? Is that possible?
No, actually, unfortunately, my job at the National Post is to try and think of ways to, exploit government programs for personal gain. Partially, I have other job descriptions, but gun buybacks, there is a long and storied history of toying with gun buybacks. When you see them at the municipal level, Toronto does this every once in a while. They'll say, oh, we'll give you $200 for any long gun you bring in, any long gun you want. And then what you can do is you can just go buy a bunch of super cheap rifles that are just rusty, and you found them in a river, and they're technically firearms, but not really. And you can pick up a whole bunch of those for like $40 or $50. You turn in a bunch of those, fight them, and they just hand you $200 per gun. You can make quite a lot of money. This one's a little different though, because a lot of them, a lot of the guns on this list. Well, first of all, you can't sell them. So if I was thinking, oh, I'm just going to go on this, I'm going to load up a van, I'm going to drive across Canada, and I'm just going to buy all these banned firearms from people. And then with the May 1st order that sort of retroactively called all of these illegal, you're not allowed to sell them. So that's sort of cut off. And there was also a bunch of stores who had these on display because some of them, the day before, they were non-restricted, which is the lowest, basically the safest classification. That's a long gun. So that's, you buy it, it's unregistered. You just got to get a license to be able to carry it around. That's the one you can take hunting, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of gun stores, they just got a letter May 1st saying, oh, all those guns in your front window, if you sell those, you're going to jail. So you can't buy them, and there's basically no other way to get them. So they instantly became prohibited. So the only real way you could get your hands, if you don't already have some, the only way you could get your hands on this, on some of these guns, in order to flip them to the government, is if you have a relative who is able to bequeath them to you. And they're even looking to ban that. So even if you've got a grandpa that's got a bunch of, a closet full of these guns, you can't touch it. Even if you want to bequeath them to you, continue to be prohibited firearms that can't shoot or anything, they're looking to ban even that. So basically, when your grandpa dies, you have to get him stopped.
Is it possible that people could try to smuggle guns across the border from the United States and into Canada simply to sell them to the government to make a quick buck?
Yes, that is something that is technically possible. So some of the guns on this list, if they were a restricted firearm beforehand, the government's going to know where they are, like every handgun is registered. Ottawa pretty much knows where all of those are. But since some of them were non-restricted, they were long guns beforehand. You could just load up a trunk from somewhere in the States, just target the cheapest possible gun on this list, and then smuggle them into Canada. And then if you just slip them to Ottawa, they would have no way of knowing that these didn't start life as a legal Canadian. Now, I would advise against this. And when you're putting together
that's a serious crime.
Yeah. Smuggling guns. If you're going to make a quick buck to the government, try and do one that doesn't make you guilty of multiple federal offenses. So, in terms of exploitation, I'd actually have to say this is a pretty airtight government program. It's highly debatable whether it's going to do anything for gun violence, but at least it can't be exploited.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Tristan, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
That was Mike Smith in conversation with Tristan Hopper, columnist and reporter with the National Post. That was earlier today on 980 CKNW in Vancouver. Your thoughts on what this means for you, what you think this will actually do to gun-related violence and crimes across Canada, and what you think about just how this is now rolling out, conveniently perhaps, as the Liberal government with Justin Trudeau still facing a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure and a lot of heat for COVID-19 rollout plans and all those delays. Your thoughts on the other side at 877-399-9898. It's next. It's here, and it's on The Shift.
There's the chief. He's coming to meet us.
Oh, why does white friends bring red impressed? We came only for a friendly talk.
That's right, Chief.
You not come to say Indians steal?
No, I'm not here hunting one of your braves, Chief, but we are hunting two white men. One short and heavy set, the other tall and bearded. Have you or any of your braves seen them?
No, them not come here. We not know them.
Oh, that's strange.
Emma.
Sandy, look at this.
What is it, Sergeant?
A diagram of some sort on the ground. The way King's acting leads me to believe he's found the scent he got from that piece of cloth. I'm sure that man was here. The chief lied to us. Yeah. Guess we may get something from this diagram. While Preston and Sandy studied the diagram scratched in the ground, the chief disappeared behind one of the nearby huts. About he and Sandy didn't know that Suko run along behind the hut toward the horses tended at the edge of the village.
From Detroit.
The chief appeared again and walked forward as the sergeant stood up and turned around. Chief, who drew this diagram?
Braves draw marks on ground to show hunting party where plenty caribou roam.
No, that isn't the truth.
If Redcoat thinks chief not tell truth, we not talk anymore. You leave village now, not come back. Come on. Come on.
We don't know this.
Who can to tell you the truth, Sergeant?
The usual concern, Sandy. You think the Indians unfriended the police.
He's ready. Wait the heck.
Find him, King. Find. Get up, like
Get up.
We'll continue our adventure in just a moment.
Contact with trusted partners all over Ontario and was able to find the ideal home near the water at his price. Now Rob needed to sell. Knowing his neighbor had a larger, more renovated home, he's concerned that what could he get for his? Frank Leo and Associates of RE/MAX put the multi-million-dollar guaranteed home selling system to work, and in only 1 week sold the property with multiple offers at an unbelievable $40,000 more than the neighbor's larger renovated home. Frank Leo and Associates. Call 416-917-5466. That's 416-917-LION. Or go online to getleo.com. That's getleo.com and start packing.
During the Only Adventure sales event, find exceptional limited-time offers on Land Rover vehicles, including the legendary Defender, the dynamic Range Rover Sport, or the versatile Discovery Sport. Each one offers unrivaled performance on-road and off. For a limited time, receive finance rates as low as 0% or save.
Americans are rolling up their sleeves. Now to continue. The Indian brave Suko had quickly mounted at the edge of the village and had taken the shortcut to the shack where Vince and Stubby were waiting. The two crooks appeared in the door with guns in their hands as the young Indian pulled to a stop.
Hey, Indian guy. Where's the after all? Yeah, I'm glad you decided to come right away, Suko. Me come to bring warning. Redcoat come to village with other feller. Him hunt for you. Hey, what's up, Vince?
Say, the Mountie came to village looking for us.
Mountie? Vince, what are we going to do?
Shut up a minute, Stubby. Did the chief tell them anything about us?
Chief say Indians not know about you. But Redcoat look close at marks on ground. Me think him know chief not tell truth.
Well, that settles it. We'll have to leave here. They may pick up our trail from the Indian village.
Me no good place. It's hunter's cabin back in mountains. Me take you there now.
Good. The quicker we leave here, the better. Let's go. The scent was fresh, so the great dog King had little difficulty trailing Stubby and Vince from the village to the shack. The intelligent husky had gone sniffing to the door of the shack. Then it turned and started on a new trail. The sergeant called him back. King, my boy.
Where was the dog going, anyhow?
I'm sure it's the way King's acting. The men we've been following have been here and left, Sandy. Nevertheless, we'll look inside that shack. Come on. The sergeant looked over the interior of the shack. The wood stove was still warm, and charred wood, which had been soaked with water, smoldered inside the stove. Haven't been gone long, Sandy. Your water over the wood in the stove, but it's still smoldering. Seems to me they left in a hurry.
You think they found out we were coming?
I don't know, but they're gone. Let's King pick up that trail again. Let's go.
Throw water in your stove.
Meantime, the young Indian guide led the two killers along a little used trail into the foothills. Soon they reached a hunter's shack.
Whoa there, That looks like a good hideout.
Yeah. This Indian sure knows how to cover a trail.
Better come inside, Suko.
You stay. Me go back to village now. Come back after sunset.
We're not going to wait that long. You stay here with us. You want to leave right away for the border.
Me not stay. Me go now.
No, wait a minute. I say you stand. Get off that horse.
It's not good. You point gun. Me think you're not friends.
Oh, shut up and get off your horse. Get off, I said. You don't, I'll...
Me do.
Now get inside.
Yeah, but if you force him to stay, he's not going to guide us.
He'll stay and he'll guide us too when we're ready to leave. Go on inside, Suko.
After Sergeant Preston and Sandy left the shack where Suko had come to warn Vince and Stubby, he noticed the hoof marks on the trail and remarked, Sandy, the trail shows 3 riders. 2 of the horses are shot and 1 isn't. That means one of the Indians must have come to warn the 2 men we're hunting.
See, that's possible. But I cannot see why they're heading this way, Sergeant. The mountains become almost impassable further on.
In that case, the Indian may be taking them to a new hiding place for the time being. We'll keep on. Get up, Lucky.
Come on, get him.
In spite of the fact that Suko had used all his ingenuity to cover the trail, King always managed to find it again.
Easy.
Finally, the trail narrowed, running between thick, tall brush. The way was rutted and stony, and the Mountie and Sandy moved at a slow pace. With King running a short distance ahead, they rounded a sharp turn and came face to face with a large bull moose standing on the trail.
Get easy, boy. Easy now.
Sandy's horse whinnied with fear and jumped to one side, throwing Sandy to the ground. He fell a few yards from the wild-eyed moose.
Sandy! He's going to charge!
King saw the danger, and even as the beast started to lunge forward, the big dog leaped toward him, growling and nipping. Preston quickly drew his gun, and as the bull moose turned aside with lowered antlers to lunge at King, the Mountie's gun barked. In spite of the bullets that had riddled him, the big moose stood a moment. Then toppled to the ground. Sandy, you hurt?
Yeah, just bruised a wee bit, Sergeant. I sure thought I was a gunner when he started toward me. It was King who got him to one side and gave you a chance to shoot.
No animal more ferocious than a bull moose, and that's a big one. Well, the Indians will find his body. Come on. Once more, the Mountie and Sandy started on their way. Finally, when they were a short distance from the hunter's cabin, Sandy remarked,
Sergeant, this part of the trail is familiar.
Oh, you mean you've come this way before?
Not along the trail we followed. I came to this point, but from another direction. One thing I do remember is there's a cabin in a clearing not far from here.
Such a cabin would make a good hideout. Glad you thought of it. We'll dismount before we reach that clearing and approach the cabin on foot.
It's a good idea. There are a lot of bushes to hide our approach.
The men we're hunting are hiding there. Maybe we'll take them by surprise. Come on, Lucky.
Get it. Oh.
Not really.
In the hunter's cabin, the Indian Suko, who was tied to a chair, glowered at Vince and Stubby as they stood near a table looking at several pokes of gold.
Well, I'd say there's plenty of those pokes, Stubby. When we leave here, we'll split it up and each carry his own share of the saddlebag.
What I'm wondering, Vince, is now that we made that Indian sore at us, how are we going to find our way to the border?
We'll make it somehow, don't worry.
Yeah, but what about him?
He knows too much. We'll have to get rid of him.
You're not friends like Chief say. You're plenty bad. You're robbed, killed.
Suko, you're too smart for your own good. If you'd agreed to go with us like I wanted, and I'd agreed to guide us to the border, you'd have been paid for your trouble. Now you're gonna die instead.
You're lying to Chief.
You're gonna get a whole
You think you're friends
That's a great
and not tell truth, the redcoat. But me know you're not good. Me know you not get away.
Suko, I'm sick of your yapping. I'm fixing so as you'll do your dancing in the happy hunting ground. I'm shutting you up right now. But first, while I hold this gun to your head, I'm going to give you one more chance.
What are you going to do, Vince? Shoot him in the back of the head?
Maybe. Now, Suko, tell me, are you willing to guide us through the mountains like we want you to do? You untie Suko. Me take you through mountains.
Don't believe him, Vince. They'll get us lost and then disappear. Yeah, I reckon you're right. I'll use a bullet on him, then we'll try to find our own way. This is it, Jim. Hey, look, come on. Wait a minute. You drop your gun, Monty, if you want to see this Indian shot through the head. I'm holding my gun close and ready.
Preston hesitated. He saw that Vince was standing behind the helpless Indian with his gun held at Suko's head. Stubby, who had raised his hands when the Mountie entered, waited for the next move. The sergeant quickly weighed the chances of shooting the crook before he could pull the trigger, but he realized the risk was great.
Go ahead, Monty. Drop that gun like a said.
Please, do not let him kill me.
Sergeant Preston saw that both crooks and the Indian were watching him intently. From the corner of his eye, he saw King creeping along the wall. He saw Stubby's eyes turn in the dog's direction, and tense for the fast action he knew was sure to come. As he hoped, Stubby cried out.
It's that dog. He's creeping up on us.
Preston saw Vince's eyes waver. The crook glanced toward King. In that split second, the Mountie's gun barked. As Vince shot from the shoulder, dropped his gun, Stubby dropped his hand to draw.
Hold it! Keep them covered, Sandy. On guard, King.
One mighty straight shooting, Sergeant. For a minute, I was pretty worried.
I hope King would attract their attention long enough for me to shoot. Yeah, if it hadn't been for that mutt making me take my eyes off you, I'd have won out. I doubt it. I'll pick up the gun.
It's good Redcoat come to save Suko. You had a close shave, Indian.
I'll untie you, Suko.
These are the two men I told you about, Sergeant. Those folks are gold on the table at Jed's and mine.
Wait a minute. You can't hold us for anything. We found this Indian with the gold. He must have stolen it. We were going to turn him in. I think this piece of material will fit that torn place in your shirt. What? You two men killed Jed Comstock, Sandy's partner.
Ah, me hear him say them kill old man. Take gold. I've seen the Indian before. He's Suko from the village. Them come to village. Want them guide to get to border. Promise much gold. Me want to go back for Sundance. Them say no. Tie me. Them say them kill Suko.
They almost did, Suko. Your people were misled by these men.
Look, Sergeant, I didn't kill Comstock. I wasn't going to kill Suko. You can't blame me.
Shut up, that crazy fool.
Sergeant, you send them to village. Indians punish them for what they do to Suko. No, don't do that, Sergeant. They torture us. Vince killed Comstock.
I arrest both of you in the name of the Crown for the murder of Jed Comstock. Suko, you go back to your village.
That's Redcoat, good friend of Indians.
Tell that to your chief. Tell him he and his people must trust the Redcoats and be truthful.
Me tell, Chief.
Sandy, we'll bandage their wounds and we'll take these two crooks to Whitehorse. When they're behind bars, I'll be able to say this case.
Canada is a multi-ethnic society. The Netherlands is a whatever is a multi-ethnic society with a complex history.
Sergeant Preston will return in just a moment with a word about our next exciting adventure. Here's a Mutual note for you. Mutual's evening lineup of great shows fits every taste. You can hear comedy, drama, mystery, music, and quiz programs, and more evening news throughout the week than on any other network. The adventurous spots of the world, or the small-town neighborhood just like your own, are at your fingertips with their full quota of drama and comedy. Young and old alike can find their favorites for good evening listening on Mutual. Whether you choose thrilling tales of danger and excitement, or news information on the important issues of the day, you can find them all on Mutual. Star names and stellar attractions put the sparkle in every evening, with programs to fit every listening mood. Casts that have been making show business history shine in roles tailored to their particular talents and ensure you quality entertainment. Stay tuned to this station and prove to yourself that it's always a good evening on Mutual. Choose your favorites every evening. All heard over most of these stations. And now, here is Sergeant Preston, reporting for duty, Inspector.
Sergeant, I've just received a strange letter. Read it.
Yes, sir. To the Northwest Mounted Police, my uncle is a murderer. I have no proof, but I'm sure he killed my father, and now he means to kill me. Help me.
And the signature?
Sally Archer.
Do you know her?
Why, it matters, sir. She and her uncle left for the Gold King mine on Roaring River yesterday.
I'd suggest that you get up there as fast as you can.
Yes, sir.
But by the time Sergeant Preston reached Roaring River, death had already struck. And as a wild storm lashed the rugged hills, another murder was being plotted. Don't miss this next exciting adventure. These radio dramas, a feature of Sergeant Preston of the Yukon Incorporated, are created by George W. Trendle, produced by Trendle Campbell Beer Incorporated, directed by Fred Flowerday, and supervised by Charles D. Livingston. The part of Sergeant Preston is played by Paul Sutton. Here's an important announcement. Starting September 16th, Sergeant Preston of the Yukon will be brought to you every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock. This is J. Michael wishing you goodbye and good luck until Tuesday, September 16th. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the wind-swept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest, Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, a breakfast cereal shot from guns, present the challenge of the Yukon. It's Yukon King, swiftest and strongest lead dog of the Northwest, blazing the trail for Sergeant Preston of the Northwest Mounted Police in his relentless pursuit of lawbreakers. On King, on! Gold discovered in the Yukon, a stampede to the Klondike in the wild race for riches, back to the days of the gold rush, with Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, bringing you the adventures of Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog Yukon King as they meet the challenge of the Yukon. Fellas and girls, listen. Today's the day.
Yes, in just a few minutes, you're going to get in on the surprise offer of a lifetime.
It's thrilling. It's terrific.
It's new. It's different.
It's something you'll want to have.
No, it flashes red. No, it flashes green.
It's out of this world for secret codes and messages.
It's not on sale in stores anywhere. You've never seen anything just like it.
So listen to this. Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, the keen-tasting, ready-to-serve breakfast cereal shot from guns, are offering every one of you listeners a chance to get one.
And what is it?
Just stand by. Have pencil and paper handy. Keep listening for full details in just a few minutes. Midwinter winds lashed through the main street of Dawson and beat at Dave Carson, publisher of the newspaper, as he made his way to Arnold Blenheim's bank. The clerk, a man named Slade, stepped up to greet the publisher.
Well, Mr. Carson. I declare it takes more than a blizzard to keep you from carrying on your business.
Hello, Slade. Weigh up this gold and put it to my account.
Gladly. Oh, by the way, Mr. Blenheim hoped you'd be in today.
Why do you hope that? I don't owe his bank any money.
Oh, no, of course not. But he'd like to see you.
Well, just the man I want to see. How are you, Carson? How is everything in the newspaper?
That's right.
I'll go and weigh up this gold.
Yeah. Carson, I've just learned a few things in which your newspaper might be interested.
Yeah?
You're familiar with a young engineer named John Bevan.
What about him?
He came here several months ago with his attractive wife and an elderly gentleman, his father, I think. Since then, a number of heavy shipments of equipment packed in wooden cases have been unloaded here at Dawson. I might add that it's expensive equipment. I happen to know because the payments have been handled through my bank.
I know he's received a lot of heavy equipment. What about it?
Well, Bevan is supposed to be prospecting up near Gopher Rapids. Now, mind you, I said supposed to be.
He's not?
The equipment that Bevan has bought and paid for is not mining equipment. No, it's electrical equipment. Heavy iron castings, wire, magnets, things of that sort, and machines that have been shipped from a place in Orange, New Jersey. Some fellow there by the name of Edison.
Why are you telling me all this, Blenheim? You want me to publish it in my newspaper?
No. But, Carson, something is going on at the Bevan place. I happen to know the house he's built near the rapids is much larger than he needs. That man is up to something. And I've learned that John Bevan is an engineer from the East who studied electricity. His father helped build the telegraph. He's a scientist. And I tell you, Carson, those Bevans will bear investigation.
Maybe so.
If I were you, I'd send a man up to Gopher Rapids to learn what they're up to.
I'll think about it.
Here you are, Mr. Carson. Here's your slip. I've credited $314 to your account.
Oh, thanks, Slade. I've got to get back to my office.
You think over what I suggest.
Yeah, I'll think it over.
He'll do it.
Do what, Mr. Blenheim?
Send one of his newspaper men up to Gopher Rapids to investigate the Bevans. That, Slade, is where you come in.
What?
Get a couple of men to help you. You ready to move if Carson sends out a representative?
What do you want me to do?
Get the reporter before he gets to Bevan's house. Have him held while you take his credentials and go in his place. Find out all you can about the Bevans project.
Have you any idea what he's doing?
Yes. He's trying to harness the water power of the rapids. Make it run what is known as a dynamo to generate electricity.
Indeed, sir.
He has a dream of sending electricity here to Dawson and using it to light the buildings. I must know whether or not Bevan is going to be successful. If not, I'll have no further concern. But if he is, I want a finger in the pie. In fact, I want the pie.
Slade lined up two men who were willing to do anything for money and held himself in readiness. Meanwhile, Dave Carson considered the banker's suggestion. The more he thought about it, the more he became interested in the activities at Gopher Rapids. Randy, this suggestion comes from Blenheim, but it's good in spite of that.
Boss, I never heard of anything good in connection with Blenheim.
You like this one? You're going north to Gopher Rapids.
That's 2 days on snowshoes if the weather isn't too bad.
2 days going, 2 days coming, 3 days there. Well, you should be back here in a week. I'll provide you with identification papers, and I think you'll find John Bevan willing to talk. See how he's coming on his plans to light the town of Dawson with electricity.
Is that what he's doing?
Hopes to. He confided in me when he first came up here, but asked me to keep quiet until he saw how things would work out. He knows he can trust me. That's why I think he'll give you the facts true. Get your gear together and be ready to leave here tomorrow morning, bright and early. Randy set out on schedule early in the morning and made good time that day and the next. Late afternoon found him pushing through the darkness, following the bank of Gopher River on the last few miles of his journey. Slade, the bank clerk, was waiting behind the big rock on the trail ahead. And with him were two hard-faced men.
There he comes, Reed. That's the man. You want me and Jake to waylay him and rob him, is that it? Yes. Tie him up and take him to that shack nearby. Clean out his pockets. You can have the cash, but bring me his credentials. I'll savvy. He's nearly here. Step out and meet him.
Come on, yeah, sure.
All right, mister. Carson. Get your hands up. You're covered. What's your game? We want you. This is the time you've made a mistake. I've got nothing worth stealing.
We'll be the judge of that. Cover him, Breeder. Clean out his pockets.
Maybe you're expecting someone else. And Randy Cole representing the Dawson Herald.
Here's a wallet.
There's no cash in it, just a couple of letters.
Oh, still.
I have $100 in gold in my belt, and that's all I had.
There's a watch.
That watch was my father's. You can't have it.
Uh-huh.
Heavy watch, too.
Give it to me.
Steady.
Give me that watch, I tell you. You can have my cash, but that's all.
Fight me, will you? Why,
I'll show you. Oh, get him. Oh.
Yeah, that did it. You shot him. Sure, I shoot him. You saw him hit Jake. He cleaned me the bust in my jaw. Glad you got him, Reed. He asked for it.
See how hard he's hit. We've got to take care of it.
He don't need no caring for. He's dead.
Reed, you gun crazy fool. Now we are in trouble. Now we've got a murder on our hands. I told you I didn't want you to hurt him. I told you there was to be no
listen, Slade, what you told us and what's done are two different things. You wanted the letters he was carrying, didn't you? There they are in the wallet. Now take them.
We can't leave him here in the snow.
We won't leave him here in the snow. No need for that. We'll go for a river close by. Yeah, and it's running full, too, Reed. Sure. We just toss him over the bank and the stream will wash him away. Chances are he'll never be found.
Yeah, grab his feet. No, wait.
What's the matter, Slade?
Wait until I'm away from here. I'll take the wallet and go on to the Bevan place. When I'm gone, you two, get rid of that.
Yellow back.
Be careful what you say. Remember, I'm the one who's paying you.
Speaking of that pay, when do we get it?
You wait in that shack you spoke of. The one where you were going to hold the newspaper man. I'll join you there after I've spent a few days with Bevan and his father. Dave Carson waited impatiently for the return of his representative with the story of the activities at Gopher Rapids. The allotted week had gone by and 2 days more, but Randy had not returned. On the third day, the publisher was pacing the floor uneasily when the door opened. Sergeant Preston, am I glad to see you. And King.
Hello, cousin.
Did you just get into town?
Yes.
Well, sit down, Sergeant.
Thanks.
You've come at the right time.
Oh? What's wrong?
Sergeant, what do you know about John Bevan up at Gopher Rapids?
Not a great deal.
He's doing something with electricity.
Yes?
Then you knew it.
Why, yes, I did.
Well, the point is just this, Preston. I have a fine young man working for me, a chap named Randy Cole.
I met him last time I was through here.
Oh, that's right, so you did. Well, he went up to Gopher Rapids to see what he could learn about the Bevan's activities. He was due back here 3 or 4 days ago. I haven't heard from him. I have a feeling that something's happened to Randy.
I'm going up that way. I'll look in on Bevan.
I wish you would. I'm wondering if maybe Randy learned things Bevan didn't want known. Bevan is playing for big stakes, Sergeant. Almost anything might have happened to Randy.
I have some things to do here in town. It'll take a couple of hours. Then King and I will start out to Gopher Rapids.
It was supper time, but Sergeant Preston didn't pause. He pushed on, hoping to reach the Bevan home in time for the evening meal. He was striding along the bank of Gopher River when suddenly King stopped.
What do you do, King?
The big dog had caught the scent of death close by. He looked at his master, then barked once more and bounded to the left of the trail, where a steep bank dropped sharply to the edge of Gopher River. Sergeant Preston watched his dog curiously.
He's caught the scent of something.
Then in a moment, King was back, whining and tugging at his master's clothing.
Steady there, boy. Found something?
King had found something, and he thought the Mountie should see it.
All right, King. It didn't tear my clothes off. I'll go with you. Down the bank, eh? The snow's deep here. Old river's running fast. Keeps going like this all winter. What?
King was near the water's edge, pawing at something dark that had been partially covered by snow. Then the Northwest Mountie was beside his dog.
A man. Dead. Shot.
The cold moonlight was brilliant. It revealed a face that was familiar.
Randy. King, it's Randy Cole. He's been murdered.
We'll continue our story in just a moment.
Unique, drawing inspiration from, quote, Sir Elton John. Experimental and bold, but at the same time feels minimal and effortless. How can all of these juxtaposed things be true? Well, it's art, it's music, it's what we love. Here is Emily Best. This is One Step, our Shift Weekend Spotlight for February 20th.
Didn't really get you off the edge of the camera.
immediate questions and larger questions around veterans and the military and gotten to a different place that we should learn from. Are there examples that you'd point out to us?
When I think about that, Carlos, I think there's an optimistic story in here. In previous wars, mental health traumas were not recognized. That this was sort of dismissed as, shell shock or any number of other sort of terms that sort of excused it. I think that there's sort of a maturity in the country in terms of acknowledging that these things exist and a willingness to count them and to intervene. I don't think that the Biden administration has an easy task ahead when it comes to this issue. The costs of war, if I've learned anything from my personal experience, is that they are far longer than the war itself, both in terms of financial impacts of providing mental health services potentially for life for some of these veterans, but also the human tolls. But I think that the trend is fairly positive, that when you look at the percentage of veterans willing to reach out and the uptake and usage of mental health services within the VA, that function within the VA is growing quite quickly. One might look at that and say that's a bad thing. The other way of looking at it potentially is that this means that veterans are more willing to reach out, and that may then help them considerably going forward.
Eric, you are right to point that out in a conversation that has a lot of terrible statistics in it. So it is good to end on that note of hope and optimism. Eric Edstrom and Bob Woodruff, thank you both very much for joining the conversation.
Thank you, Kathy and Carlos.
Thank you.
Kathy, that was incredibly powerful. Eric and Bob both gave me a lot to think about.
You always know we have had an interesting conversation, Carlos, when you and I are texting each other saying, this is really interesting. I had not heard that.
Come on in, Sergeant. You too, King.
Thanks, Don.
Dad, you remember Sergeant Preston?
Indeed I do. Yes, sir, indeed I do.
Glad to see you again, Dr. Bevan. You too, Margie.
I declare we should really have a party tonight. It's an occasion to celebrate. Oh, close that door, John. Don't let the cold in.
I've come through some deep snow. I'm sorry to track up your floor like this.
Oh, don't worry about that, Sergeant.
You might at least make a comment, Sergeant Preston.
Comment?
He hasn't noticed it, Mark.
And I thought the Mounties had sharp eyes.
Oh, the light.
I wondered how long it would take.
An electric light. The first one in the Yukon Territory. Congratulations, John.
Oh, Dad's the one to congratulate. He did all the brain work.
Oh, now.
You must show Sergeant Preston your workshop.
Oh, yes, indeed.
You're in the house?
Yes, you're standing right beneath it.
Beneath it?
Yes. You see, when we built this house, we made her a few feet higher than usual. Put a ceiling over this room and the one in back. Right there's a ladder leading up to a hole in the ceiling. My workshop's up above under the eaves.
I see.
Got a good solid floor there to support my machinery and equipment. Makes a first-rate place to work. It's snug and it's warm.
And you've been successful.
Well, we can operate this one lamp. Now it's a case of increasing the output.
We're using the light tonight for the first time.
I'm sorry.
But why?
This should be an occasion to celebrate. I'm sorry I have to bring bad news. I found a dead man on the trail.
What?
It was a newspaper man in Dawson. His name was Randy Cole.
Randy Cole? Oh, but that's impossible.
Impossible.
Cole's right here. He's been with us about a week.
Man I found's been dead about that long.
You must have made a mistake, Sergeant. What made you think it was Randy Cole?
I recognized him, Doctor. What makes you think Randy Cole's here with you?
Oh, his credentials. Showed them to us to identify himself. We've been telling him all about the electric plant we've set up here and our plans for expansion.
He promised to help us.
Yes, you see, we planned to form a company and issue stock.
I'll talk to this man who calls himself Cole. Where is he?
He's in a room at the rear, one that has a door in the outside so that he can come and go as he wants to without going through the rest of the house.
He went to take a nap a few minutes ago.
Cole? Hey, Cole, there's someone here to see you.
I'll go in.
He doesn't answer. Maybe he's asleep.
Oh, that wind.
The outer door is open.
Cole's not here.
Looks as if he left in a hurry. Didn't even take time to close the door.
You going after him?
I am. King can follow his trail all right, even though the wind does fill in his footprints. But before I go after him, I'd like to borrow your sled and dog team to bring in the body of the other man.
You're welcome to anything we have.
Thanks, John. I'll be back here in an hour. Then King and I will go after the man who called himself Cole. I'll see what he knows about the murder of Randy.
During the week that Slade had lived with the Bevan family, gathering information about their plans, he had gone at least once each day to a nearby cabin where the killers waited. But now he traveled faster than ever before. He was tired and breathless when he came out of the windy darkness.
Reed, Jake, we've got to work fast.
What's the trouble?
What's going on? It's O'Malley. He's at the Bevan place.
No?
Yes. He found and recognized Cole.
He did.
I thought the body'd be carried downstream. Well, it wasn't. The Mountie knows I'm an imposter.
How'd you get away?
By the skin of my teeth. I had a room at the back of the house. I could hear what was going on. I skinned out before the Mountie got around to questioning me. Come on, boys, we've got to get back there.
For what?
To get the Mountie, of course.
Not so fast, Slade. Mounties come a lot higher than newspapermen. Before we move, we better talk terms.
Terms? Why, you fool. You'll get that Mountie or he'll get you.
We can maybe get away if we start now and keep moving. But you're not in such a good position. The Bevans know you. They can describe you. Chances are the Mountie will recognize you as the bank clerk when he hears the description.
All right, all right.